Okay, here's a demo of my inventory window that I've been working on. Sorry if the sound isn't working that well. It seems, well, at least I have it working this time. Hopefully it'll pull through and I won't have to redo this video. So the way this is set up right now, it generates a map and creates 8 units on a specific tile on that map and selects the first one and selects the tile that they're on and also selects the building. Well, it doesn't need to do all of that, but that's what it's doing in the background. And then it opens up this inventory window or the unit window for those selected game entities. So if you look at the window here, it actually has 2 inventories inside of here. So the first inventory by default will open to be the selected unit. And if there is no unit selected, it'll be the first unit on the tile. And if there are no units on the tile, it will not open anything over here. And then on this other side, it will default to open up the selected building. If there is no selected, well, that might need to be fixed. But anyway, if there is no selected building, it will select whatever building is on the tile. And if there is no building on the tile, I can't remember what it does. But anyway, the idea is that you can have a unit's inventory open and another inventory open at the same time so that you can swap things between them. So I'll show you how the swapping works. So this unit, well, there's one other thing. So at the bottom of the inventory, there's this bar here with all the different units, and you can click on a different unit to open that unit's inventory. So see, I'm clicking on different units here, and each unit is randomly generated a random resource, a random amount of a random resource to have. Another thing you can do, so it has a slider bar at the bottom in case there's too many things on the tile, but you can also just click and drag. It doesn't have to be on the slider bar. And the same for the inventory itself. Although this inventory isn't big enough, but you can add slots to the inventory using these buttons. So I can increase or shrink the size of the inventory. So well, let me show you how to pick something up. So if you left click, it'll pick up the resource and move it around. I hope you can see this in the video. I don't know if this graphic is considered part of this this screen record or not. But anyway, on my screen, I can see my mouse is dragging around a giant gold coin with a 66 next to it. And you can click again to put it down anywhere. And notice this bar at the top, basically like showing how loaded your unit is, will fill up or shrink if you pick it up or put it down. Now if you right click, it'll pick up half the stack. So you could right click, so you have 33 and 33, put it down. Right click again, I have 16 and 17, right click again. So you could quickly do sort of a binary decrease to get specific amounts. You can also, when you're already holding a resource, you can right click on a tile to put 1 down. Actually, it's not working now. It was working just before. Well, anyway, I have to find out what's wrong with that. But you're supposed to be able to right click to put a single piece of it down, but for some reason it's not working. So you can do the same thing with the other inventory. So you could pick up a stack of resources, put it down. You could pick up half, put it down. I'm not sure why the single right click to put 1 piece down doesn't work. So these are resources, stacks of resources, and then there are also items. The number next to the item is telling you how much the item weighs, not how many of them you have. So each item takes up an entire slot. But since you can add or remove as many slots as you want, it doesn't really matter. You could have like 1,000 helmets that each take up a weight of 1 or a size of 1. And you could just keep adding slots to fit them all. The limiting factor is how much load capacity you have. So like this depot can hold, I think, 10,000 total. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe it's more than 10,000. Because that's 8,400 and it's only 78%. Well, I need to look at that. There might be something slightly off there. But that's basically how it's supposed to work. As you pick things up, you can see the the load capacity, the current load goes down out of the maximum load. And when you pick a item up, obviously you can't split an item in half. So if you like, I'm right clicking right now, but it just picks it up. It doesn't pick up half of a helmet. Now, this other bar down at the bottom, this is your equipment bar. So it's kind of like your tool bar, like you have in a lot of games. So it's showing what you currently have equipped. So you can see the unit here has been defined to have 2 hand slots and 1 armor slot. And then it also has sort of its own personal backpack where it can store its that can only hold the resources that this unit requires for upkeep. So this unit requires 10 food every turn for upkeep. So if I try to stick dirt into that slot, notice nothing happens when I click. But if I pick up some food and try to stick it in the slot, see, now I have 514 food. And the other 486 stays in my hand, and you can put it back. That's because this unit has a maximum load of 500, and I already have 66. Something's off here. Well, I'll have to look at that. This was working fine until recently, like sometime this evening. So this should be adding up to 500. I don't know why it's 514 and 66. There must be something off in the math somewhere. But anyway, you can see the basic idea. It's a small bug. I'll need to find out what's going on. So it sort of reminds you what type of resource needs to be held by this unit for upkeep. And also it gives you a slot that's separate from your main inventory, so that when you're doing stuff with your main inventory, it's not like accidentally pulling out the things that you need for that unit's personal use. Now these other slots, this is a humanoid. Well, I defined a equipment slot called a humanoid hand slot, and then equipment, well, items are given an equipment, basically an equipment type. So you basically have to define it as the same thing. So anything that can go into a humanoid unit's hand, you would want to define it to be a humanoid hand type of equipment. So, which I did for these 3 items. So shield, spear, and sword are all humanoid hand slot items, which means you can put them in this humanoid hand slot. There you go. And I could put a shield in the other slot. Notice if I try to put armor into the slot, it can't fit. I click, nothing happens. But I have an armor slot, a humanoid armor slot, and this helmet just happens to be humanoid armor, so notice I can put that in that slot. So I could equip up my unit, and then I will give it some food so it has something to eat while it's traveling around. These numbers are still adding up weird. Anyway, and then notice the building can also have its personal inventory here, which this building only requires gold for upkeep, so it reminds you that you should be putting gold there. So I can take this stack of gold and stick it there. Now this gold will be excluded from actions that affect the inventory. So for example, let's say I want to dump what's currently in the inventory. Well, let's do a different example. So we'll go the other direction. So if I have food here, I have 66 food, but I also have 200 food here in my personal inventory, my equipment slot or tool belt or whatever you want to call it. So I have this dump button. So dump just totally empties your inventory into the other one, and it has this direction arrow that you can toggle. So if I toggle it to go from the unit into the building, and I hit dump, notice it took the food and dumped it into the depot. But it didn't take the food that was in my personal inventory for this unit. So that way, if you're, or for example, let's say you want to get the resources to build a specific thing, you have this units tab, a buildings tab, and an items tab. So let's say you want to build an item, which, well, nothing takes gold. But let's just say you did have an item that takes gold. So this takes wood and metal to make a sword, or a spear takes wood and metal. So what I can do is toggle this to go the other direction. If I press get, that's messed up now too. It's supposed to get the exact number of resources that it takes to make the spear. And that also had been working, so apparently I have a few bugs to fix here, but that should have grabbed 12 wood and 3 metal. And if you kept clicking it, it would keep getting, each time you click it, it would get 12 more wood and 3 more metal. This build cost is actually the cost times the number of actions it takes. So it actually costs 1 metal and 4 wood per time that you work on it, and it takes 3 actions to complete the spear. So 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 1 is 3. That's where you get the total amount. But if you're going to get the resources to build something, you need the total amount, not the amount that it would require to build 1 turn's worth of the spear. So hopefully that makes sense. And you can click on these different items and then do get in order to grab all the resources at once that it takes to build it. And then for buildings, you could select a depot and it'll tell you what resources you need for that, and the same for units, which most units you can only build using Clay of Life, except for mechanical ones, like building a catapult would just take probably wood or something. But living units you can only build with Clay of Life. So you can build units, but normally you wouldn't build them, you would grow them from other units interacting with each other. Alright, so that covers most of what's here. You can also sort the inventory. So if your inventory is sort of mixed up and things are out of order, you can do sort, and notice it put them back in order. And it also is supposed to shrink the inventory down, which in this case, I guess it shrank the inventory but didn't shrink the window. But you can shrink it manually anyway. So you have dump, get, and sort to operate on the inventory, and all of those exclude this. This is actually a separate inventory. It's an equipment's inventory, a special one. So this only acts on your storage inventory, not on your equipment inventory. And then over here, if you have, like, let's say a human type or a building type or an item type selected, and you want to get back to the tile, you just click tile, and it gives all the stats about the tile. And then I added a couple other buttons for selecting your actions. So right now you could, this is maybe more for testing purposes, but I think you will be able to manage some of your unit actions inside of this window. Or I might just make a separate window for it. But you could set your unit, for example, to forage. So if I set it to forage and then I go and end turn, watch the human's inventory here. Notice it got 51 food, but if we look at the tile, it has 49 left. So let's end the turn again. What happened there? Well, I'll click forage again. It should keep foraging until it has a reason to stop, such as running out of food on the tile. But this tile actually still has food, so I'm not sure why it stopped foraging. Oh, I'm out of space, that's why. So let me dump the inventory. So dump everything. And now when I forage, watch what happens. So I have 79, and that's all that was on the tile, which causes the unit to become idle again because it can't do it shouldn't be wasting its actions foraging when there's no food on the tile. So it automatically just sets itself to an idle state. But if I end a few more turns, notice the food is replenishing on the tile, 10, 20, 30, 40. And you can even see, it doesn't tell you how much it increases. It should tell you that. So I'll have to increase what's on this tile, what information is being displayed here. But anyway, the other thing you can do is mine. So if I mine this tile, it will generate a random type of resource. So the mining, it's these numbers here are the chances out of whatever total numbers you have here. So you can just define these yourself. So you could create arbitrarily large or small amounts. Because otherwise, if you have a denominator set, let's say the denominator is 1,000, but you have some really rare items, such as Clay of Life or Grommetez, that you want to be more rare than 1 out of 1,000, you can just set all the other items to be higher numbers. So I have stone set to 10,000. Well, these are actually, you can set a range, and then when it creates a tile, it generates a random value within that range. So that's why there's 0 Grommetez. This could have had up to 1, but it was a random number between 0 and 1. So this specific tile happened to have 0 Grommetez. So I'm probably not going to get any Clay of Life, but I will definitely get some stone, lots of stone and some dirt and maybe a little metal here and there. So if I start hitting end turn, see I got 40 stone and 10 dirt by mining. And that's because I had a bunch of actions saved up in my unit. The unit gets 4 actions every turn, and I think I just ended a turn or two, so it had queued up some extra actions. They can save up a certain amount from one turn to the next. So if I keep ending the turn, yeah, it's going up. 160, 180. Yeah, so it's getting 20 every turn because it gets 5. It gets an amount based on your strength. So humans have a strength of 5, which means you get 5 of whatever resources rolled per time that you mine. But if you have 4 actions, you get to mine 4 times every turn. So you're effectively getting 20. So if I keep ending the turn, I'm basically going to run out of space here. Yep, I'm out of space. Maybe not. There's something wrong again with the... oh, there, I got a piece of iron. This is letting me go up... oh, you know what? It would be nice to see what type of unit this is. But currently, if you click on a unit, it doesn't display that down here. That would be a good idea, because then I could see if this is a human or a spiker. Humans are supposed to have a smaller inventory than spikers. But these load values are acting a little bit weird, because I'm pretty sure this is only supposed to go up to 500 total, and it was basically already almost there because of all the stuff in my... oh! Well, I just added in this equipment belt, so it might not be calculating that property when I do the load. So maybe that's what's wrong. But anyway, this gives you an idea of what my window does and how it's working so far. I'm still planning to add in a stack, basically a stack bar, so you can move units in and out of the stack, which is almost like a third inventory. So you have your storage area for like transporting things, and you have your personal use area, and then you have a separate area that will store units, but they're not really being stored. They're not contributing towards the weight that this unit is carrying, but they're essentially being led by this unit. So you'll only see that unit on the map, and the map will only think that there's one unit there. But when you do a battle or something, or when you move, it'll be moving all of them at once, or attacking with all of them at once. But they're not contributing towards the inventory load capacity, and their moves are being used up. So they're basically just traveling as a group with whatever unit you have selected, which means that you can store units inside of your inventory. For example, if you have like a horse cart, you could have a unit like sitting in the cart, or if you have a ship, you could have another unit inside of the boat, like inside of its hull, or maybe in a spaceship you could be carrying other units inside of it, in which case the units that are inside the inventory, their moves do not get used up while the other unit is moving. But if you're just grouping them together into a stack, then it's not that some units are inside of the other, they're just grouped together. But for purposes of calculations, they're moved as a single unit. but all of their moves would be decreased, and their total moves that they could go would be the minimum of all of those units in the group. So that's sort of what's up next. That's basically the last thing I need to do, other than possibly touching up the action management, but that might need to go in a separate window from this. This window's getting kind of cluttered, but it would be nice to be able to do all of that at once, because let's say you want to build something, you would want to get the resources to build it, and then you would maybe want to set the action to build at the same time and not have to close and open up a different window. But that's basically what I have so far. Also, you could notice if I move these resources into sort of a weird arrangement, let's say I group them in a weird way, like I want to I don't know, build something that takes these two things, and then just trying to remember what I did. If I exit the window and then open it again, notice they stayed in that format unless you sort them. If I press the sort button, they go back to being a minimal organized state. But only humans would have things out of this sorted state anyway, and only if they shifted things around like I just did. Let me see if there's anything else I missed, but that's basically what I was going to show so far. Yeah, that gives the basic gist, I think. So hopefully this video works and that it's clear. So there you go.